Hi, this is Anna Imagination with a Healing Garden. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives. If you are new here, hi, welcome. I have 30 years in philosophy, psychology, and sociology. So there's something fishy going on. I just looked up the word energy to reestablish what's that definition. I've been studying physics since 1992. I studied music theory for about 15 years, and you can't study music theory without really dabbling deep into physics. So I'm now brushing up on physics, and I came upon energy, and I'm like, let me look at this again. Energy is defined as the force that causes us to move. That's energy. Logical fallacy, like something huge just really hit me, and I went, well, that doesn't make sense. The definition makes sense, but something else doesn't. I'll explain in a minute here. So energy is the force that causes us to act, to move, which means emotions are energy. Now, this I knew. So because energy or emotions equal energy, because they are a force that causes us to move, to act, to do. So emotions are energy, 100%. That makes sense. Now, people tell me that money is energy. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because money does not motivate us to move. Money is not a force that causes us to act. Not at all. Money is a consequence. So is sex, and so is control. Those are consequences. Those are consequences to action. The action is brought about by emotional energy. So emotional energy creates an action which leads to money, sex, or control. Money, sex, and control are consequences, which means money is not energy. So what is it? Because it's not a force that causes us to act. Now, here's the other thing. It has to be 100% consistent for it to be accurate. If it's not 100% consistent, at least 98% consistent, then it's wrong. You're guessing. So, what's going on? That's what I want to know. What's going on? This is highly fishy for me. Highly fishy. All right. See, it's a consequence. God, this is bothering me. Let me go back to physics. The physics of energy. All right, let's take a look at potential energy versus kinetic energy. Ha, 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 ha. That's cool. So potential energy, like potential, is what can be, and kinetic energy is what is. So that tells me that potential energy is stored energy, and kinetic energy is physical energy. Now, this is funny. For me, emotional energy is kinetic energy that we transfer over to potential energy. Yeah, it's controlled energy because we have to mindfully practice at changing our actions or choosing our actions when we have an emotion. So it's transferable. Potential energy isn't transferable, and it depends on the height. So kinetic energy is transferable. Now, so is emotional energy. Emotional energy is transferable. Very much 100%. So I'm definitely putting that emotional energy is part of kinetic energy. And it's transferable. Now, there is unconscious emotions, and then there is conscious emotions. Now, this is something I'm going to clarify. All emotions we're consciously aware of, except not all. In most cases, we are consciously aware of the emotions, but our subconscious mind will transfer those emotions unconsciously, or our conscious awareness will transfer them on purpose. This is what CBT does. Cognitive behavioral therapy is you are consciously transferring your emotions to a desired result. Whereas the subconscious mind reacts to the emotional energy, and the subconscious mind will automatic put it wherever it wants to go for a desired result. So it's the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind. This is what we're doing, by the way, whenever we do therapy, whenever you do emotional management. What you're really doing is redirecting where things go. So conscious awareness has a conscious desired outcome in mind. It's controlled transference of emotional energy, or it's uncontrolled transference of emotional energy. And that's when it's automatic for your subconscious mind. So when you do mental healing, what you're really doing is you are consciously switching your mind from an uncontrolled transference of emotional energy, from an automatic response over to a conscious desired outcome, using your emotional energy to transfer it in a controlled setting. That's what we're doing in psychology. Now, I'm going to say a million times over until I die, that psychology is just physics. It is the literal, intentional and study of emotional energy and how it's used in our psychological makeup. It is extraordinary. So it is emotional energy. Now, in the last video I did, I was going over how motivation and a frequency of anger, frequency of abuse, frequency of discomfort basically creates motivation or momentum with which to bring about change. But if you're an avoidant, you're actually going to release the frequency. So the frequency at which something happens, you're going to consciously, subconsciously, literally subconsciously, you're going to deplete the amount of discomfort you have, or avoid the anger, or constantly diffuse the problem, which is going to basically not bring out change, because change occurs in the third stage of anger. And anger is a required emotional energy for change to occur. Now, what you're really doing is transferring the emotional energy from anger to misery and sadness with depression. Those are your options. And you basically reach a breaking point, which is located in anger. And the breaking point is when change finally occurs, because you have the incentive to change. The abuse is the inertia. It's the catalyst, which then contributes to the momentum. So the abuse is the energy, because abuse provides you with negative energy. And it's the negative emotional energy that provides motivation. But if you constantly turn it into a temporary positive emotion, you're literally siphoning off any of the momentum. So you never see a change that comes out. Frequency is the rate at which something, abuse, occurs. So the frequency of abuse, or the frequency of discomfort, leads to change. Now, you can either do this through conscious awareness, where you are transferring the energy. What do you transfer it into? What are you changing it into? Action. You would be action. You're changing it into an action. Or change, a state of change. Kinetic energy depends on an object's motion. Potential energy hinges on its position. The relationship between the two. Oh, this is an article. Well, let's go ahead through the article. An object has potential energy when something about its position gives us the ability to do work. Using potential energy refers to the energy something has because it's elevated above Earth's surface. This could be a car at the top of a hill or a skateboard at the top of a ramp. See, I have a different definition of Earth's surface, but okay. An object's potential energy is directly related to its height above the Earth. The word, but okay, so yeah, I get it. Conservation of energy. Sometimes kinetic energy becomes potential energy, and which is what happens in the case of depression. Wow, interesting, because that's exactly it. When you have an addiction, and I need to clarify, addiction is conservation of energy. So addiction actually leads to conservation of energy because it costs energy. Oh, look at that. Okay, so basically abuse happens, and that is kinetic energy, emotional energy. And when the abuse happens, you gain momentum for the change to occur. And that should lead to the change that we see with the third stage of anger. But that's not what's happening. Instead, that kinetic energy for an avoidant, which is, an avoidant is somebody who struggles with, an avoidant can struggle with addiction. An avoidant can struggle with self-mutilation or an eating disorder. So when an avoidant does that, it's literally a conservation of energy. That is what's going on. And that conservation of energy takes the abuse and transfers it over to conservation of energy rather than potential energy. So when we are abused, we are actually receiving negative emotional energy, which propels us to change. However, the avoidant switches that kinetic emotional energy over to a conservation of energy, and change does not take place, which is why somebody with depression or addiction can stay in the cycle for a long time. Resistant, as in drug resistance, the reduction in the effectiveness of a drug to a cure disease, use of microbial disease, microbial infection, the ability of an organism to fight off disease, potential energy, the properties of matter and energy. A number that shows how much an object resists speeding up and slowing down. That is mass. That is a nice definition. It is the resistance. So mass basically measures resistance. There we go. So mass equals potential resistance. That's not potential, is it? How much something resists. Basically, it measures resistance. But I want to say it's potential. It's the measurement of resistance. Mass is the measurement of resistance. But that's a physical measure how much matter that object is made from. Matter. Okay. So let me look up matter. Why is that not here? It should be here. I feel like it should be right here. Huh, they don't define matter. Okay. Physics. A substance that has mass and takes up space. Okay, how can mass mean matter and matter mean mass? That's not logical. Substance that has mass and takes up space. Does energy there is definitely resistance happening here. With the energy exchange in the human mind, there is definitely resistance happening, resistance to change. It requires energy to shift a perspective. It requires energy to shift a perspective. So we preserve energy by resisting, but it costs more energy to resist. No, we are avoiding conservation of energy. Negative, positive energy. Conservation of positive energy due to scarcity. Resistance to energy, positive and negative. I need to go back over to electromagnetics. Usually atoms can be imagined as a nucleus or protons and neutrons and a surrounding cloud of orbiting electrons that take up space. However, this is only somewhat incorrect because subatomic particles and their properties are governed by quantum nature, which means they do not act as everyday objects appear to act. They can act as like waves as well as particles. They do not have well-defined sizes or positions. See, emotions work on waves. They vary, which is frequency. They very much work on frequency and waves. Particle physics. Matter is not a fundamental concept because of the elementary constituents of atoms or quantum entities. So let me look at particle physics. High energy physics is the study of fundamental particles and forces that constitute matter and radiation. The fundamental particles in the universe are classified in the standard model as fermions, matter particles, and bosons, force-carrying particles. I have got to internalize this. History. The idea of that all matter is fundamentally composed of elemental particles dates from at least the 6th century BC. Excellent. I have resources. In the 19th century, John Dalton, through his work on stoichiometry. Ooh, a new word. What is stoichiometry? Stoichiometry. Weights of reactants and products before, during the following chemical reactions. Fascinating. Founded by the law of conservation of mass, where the total mass of the reactants equals the total mass of the products. Fascinating. Stoichiometry is founded on the law of conservation of mass. In physics and chemistry, the law of conservation of mass, or principle of mass conservation, states that for any system closed to all transfers of matter and energy, the mass of the system must remain constant over time. One more time, the mass of the system must remain constant over time, as the system's mass cannot change, so the quantity can neither be added nor be removed. Therefore, the quantity of mass is conserved over time. The law implies that mass can neither be created nor destroyed. I don't like the word mass. Where did the word come from? There is a logical fallacy in there. Mass. Mass etymology. Who came up with this word? Greek. Mazza. Latin. Massa. Old French. Mass. Oh, we're talking about a mass, a pile, a heap. Okay, let's look up the history of mass in physics. Can we do that? Does that exist? History of mass in physics. There we go. Brief history of the concept of mass. There we go. Who came up with this? So this term mass is derived from the Latin massa, meaning a lump of dough or paste. That's what I just read, because it means kneading, as in bread kneading. And I'm like, I need to go somewhere else because I'm getting bread kneading. That didn't make sense. So in many ancient cultures, despite standardization of units such as length and volume, different units of weights were used for different goods, and measures vary from place to place. Therefore, it has been argued that weight was not conceived as a unified concept, but rather as a property of individual objects like color or smell. This view may have been the cause of Aristotle's perception, that heavy objects fall faster than light ones. Yes, this is correct. See, we're back into philosophy again. Ancient Greek philosophers thought weight derived from centrifugal force. I'll get this word. Centrifugal forces, whereas Roman thinkers believed weight resulted from a natural tendency of objects to fall. Aristotle argued that the heavy elements, earth and water, have gravity, a tendency to move to the center of the universe, whereas light elements, air and fire, have levity, a tendency to move away from the center of the universe. Galileo, philosophers of science have argued, understood the concept of inertial mass without ever offering an explicit definition of the term. There it is. Newton, I love Newton, he's one of my favorites, used the term pondus, which translates to weight, to refer to a measure of matter, but was aware of a distinction between quantity of matter and gravitational force. You know what I love about my brain? When something's illogical, I know it and I can feel it. And I'm in here and I'm going, so basically a bunch of really smart people is in disagreement over what mass actually is. I love it. Like no one can figure this out. Okay, so I got to figure out who's right. Newton used the term pondus, which translates to weight, to refer to a measure of matter, but was aware of a distinction between quantity of matter and gravitational force. He reported that because, see, mass is, I get that mass makes up the space that one takes up. My mass is literally what's taking up the space. And yeah, like I can see that in mass. Newton defined mass in the following way. The quantity of matter is the measure of the same arising from its density and bulk conjointly. But Ernest Mach suggested that Newton's definition was circular and proposed an argument that mass is a concept constructed simply to take sense of the motion of objects. Mass, in my opinion, means the whole of, the entirety of, the whole of. Now let's look at the definition of matter based off of that concept. By the way, whoever's right will have their answer plug into all of the definitions perfectly. That's how you know it's right. Okay, so matter. Let's look up matter. Matter. Definition, according to physics. Matter is anything that takes up space and can be weighed. See, now that, I'm beginning to think that matter and mass are interchangeable. In other words, matter has volume and mass. There are many different substances or types of matter in the universe. See, and I'm starting, something just popped up in over here from economics. What just popped up in from economics? Something's related here. The zero sum. That taking away from X will somehow take away from another. See, that's just it, is mass is this idea that you can be divided, it can be pulled apart, it can be changed. Can you change matter? Anything that takes up space and can be weighed. Can air be weighed? In other words, matter has volume and mass. But when I look up mass, it's what makes up. There are many different substances or types of matter in the universe. Chemists describe matter based on both physical characteristics, just as color of mass, and chemical characteristics. So I want to almost say that chemistry, because chemistry is precise. It has to be, or things go boom. So I almost want to say that chemistry has the answer. Chemistry has the right answer. I really want to lead towards what chemists say that matter and mass are. So let me go by chemists, not physics, because physics, there's way too much debate happening. So let me look up mass as defined in chemistry. There we go. Because these people have to have it right or shit goes boom. All right, so let's go to chemistry. Mass is a measure of the amount of matter in an object. Mass is usually measured in grams. Oh, see, precision. I love precision. Okay, so mass is a measure of the amount of matter in a substance or an object. The basic SI unit for mass is the kilogram, but the smaller masses may be measured in grams. Okay, so we're dealing with a metric system. That's fine. Okay, so mass sounds like a body. It's the subject in the whole. That's what it sounds like. Now, why does this matter? Because of energy. Because I can't sit there and argue energy without understanding what matter and mass are. That's why, because every time I go through this, I keep hitting mass and matter. So you have an action. See, this is the other thing. This is all about action. This isn't physical. This is actions, not matter. So an action, abuse, generates emotional energy. Yes, action generates emotional energy. Just like friction. Over to friction, definition in physics. Friction is the force resisting the relative motion of solids, okay? Dry friction, fluid friction, internal friction is the force resisting motions between the elements made up of solid material and it's resistance. Friction is the force resistant. Okay, so it's the resistance. So one could say that, yeah, boy, there's friction in this room. We say that all the time. So abuse is friction or the resistance. There we go. There we go. So abuse is friction or resistance. And that creates a negative emotional energy. And what is the opposite of friction? I wonder what the opposite of friction is in physics. Opposite of friction. In physics, it's a thing. Particles on a surface that can have a negatively mobility when subject to an oscillating force. Does it say the opposite of friction? Okay, particles on a surface can have a negative mobility when subject to an oscillating driving force. The motion of paired particles on a surface appear in a wide variety of different contexts. Let's go to a different source because this one's all over the place. What is the opposite force of friction? There is no force opposite to friction. Yes, there is. Oh, that's Quora. Quora is garbage. What are the equal and opposite forces of frictional forces? What is the action-reaction pair of static friction? Okay, so really, it's going to be acceptance. I mean, come on. Occam's razor. Let's do this. Come on. Let's get rid of the definitions for just a minute and go Occam's razor. Okay, so friction means resistance, which means acceptance, going with the flow, agreeable. That's what it means. Agreeable, going with the flow, acceptance. That is when you lack friction. Friction causes negative emotions. When you're going with the flow, you have a flow of positive emotions. Negative emotions creates resistance, or resistance creates negative emotions, which is what you get. Where does he create his negative emotions? Mind you, this is still all depression, right? Actions, abuse, frictions, resistance. Okay, so you have the negative manifestation, I can't, which is actually friction. You are creating friction when you have an I can't statement, when you think negatively. You are actually creating abuse and friction because you are resisting the natural flow. Where did I just read about this? Natural flow. Natural flow. What did I just say? I said this earlier in physics. Natural flow. Natural state physics. Any motion without being forced that an object does naturally is known as the natural state motion. Aristotle. I love studying physics. And then, poof, there's Aristotle. All right, it's known as the natural state motion. The examples of natural motion are as follows. A plate lying at rest on a table naturally remains at rest. If we let go of an object, it naturally falls towards Earth. Thank you, Aristotle. I'm not going to drop that. What is the meaning of natural state in physics? The natural state of an object is rest. Rest. I disagree. But this is an object. For example, a stone is moved only when it is thrown or carried from one place to another. This is constructed by Galileo, but people are not objects at rest. The natural state of a person is not at rest. We are self-propelled. Self-propelled. In fact, a human is lousy and miserable when we are not moving. Why is that? Everything in this world doesn't have a problem staying still and at rest except humans. Humans cannot be that. In fact, we get restless when we are at rest. Why? Because we are energy. Because we are energy. I've known that for a while. We are energy. We are literally a whole bunch of energy moving about. We are energy. We are an embodiment of energy, which means our natural state is momentum, which explains why when somebody has depression, they get sad and they grieve because they're not moving. The more sedentary you get, the more miserable we are. The more we rest, the more restless we become. And this is why, is because we are not supposed to sit still because we are energy. We must have momentum. Okay. So, back to energy. Scientists define energy as the ability to do work. Modern civilization is possibly blah, 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 blah. What is that garbage? That is not. Oh, that's .gov. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Yeah, that's Energy Information Administration.gov. Okay, that was so patriarchal, like, ew. In physics, energy is the quantitative property that is transferred to a body or to a physical system, recognizable in the performance of work in the form of heat and light. Energy is a conserved quantity. The law of conservation of energy states that energy can be converted in form but not created or destroyed. So energy can be converted. Isn't that interesting? It can be transferred. It can be preserved. No, stored energy. So depression is when you store the energy. Feeling stuck creates anxiety because we're not moving. Dreams, imagination, desires, and wishes, wants, goals propel us forward. Dreams, imagination, desires, wishes, wants, and goals propel us forward. We are energy beings. Remember that. Because it propels us forward, that makes the dreams, the imagination, desires, wishes, wants, goals, motivation, momentum. That is the drive and the direction. It tells us where we are going, and it is the thing that propels us forward. That's why we need imagination. Now, how do you take a dream and transfer it into a do, into an action? So from dream to action. You need a catalyst. Frequency of inertia. That's what you need. So frequency of inertia, frequency of abuse, or frequency of discomfort, frequency of, there you go. So frequency of discomfort, frequency of abuse, builds up inertia, which converts into the motivation or the momentum to change. Anger is the added emotion to basically charge. Anger adds charge, energy charge, to the motivation and the momentum until you finally pop and make the change. That's the third stage of change. Third stage of anger is change. And then you use that for motivation and momentum, which then takes your dreams, imagination, drives, desires, wishes, wants, goals, and it propels you forward. I am convinced that I know mental illness is just logical fallacy. And that's the problem, is basically logical fallacy it gums up the works of your physics. Your physics is all misaligned. So now when I look at people, I go, I understand you have logical fallacies that are getting in the way of your energy. Like, that's how I see people. All right. So it propels us forward. Okay, so reverse engineer this thing. This is what's supposed to happen. We are supposed to have dreams, imagination, desires, wishes, goals, and wants. And that is supposed to build up with discomfort and inaction. That is when you have restlessness, because we are energy and we are propelled to move. So if you have a sedentary life, if you have an abusive life, that's all going to contribute into emotional energy that literally brings about the anger, annoyance, frustration to motivate change. And then you get up and you take action, you go forward. Now, in depression, this does not occur. The reason why is because the avoidant, who usually suffers from depression, takes the anger and transfers that not from the energy change. It transfers the anger or the abuse or the discomfort into basically a pressure valve. And they do this through addiction, or they do it through a conservation of energy. And that's exactly how the subconscious mind works. Conservation of energy kicks in. So your subconscious mind then takes that, and instead of it actually getting the real emotion in this case is authority. You get a fake emotion called control, which is basically a consequence of authority. Authority is the real energy. Okay, so fruit. That's what it is. Control is fruit. Sex is fruit. Fruit. That's what it is. Money is fruit. Fruit of your labors. Oh, that makes sense now. That makes so much sense now. All right. So your labors are your energy. No, that's not logical. Energy is the current in which the labors flow. Energy is the current which carries the labors from labor into action, into fruit. We just want the fruit. That's all this is about. We just want the fruit without growing the tree. That's all. We are fruit seekers. That's what this is about. We are fruit seekers. All right, so fruit is sex, money, and control. Control is often viewed as power, but that's a misnomer. I'll explain that here in a minute. Labor, and by the way, this whole process is energy. So labor to action to fruit. This is energy. This is the current in which it all flows. This is the emotional energy current. All right, so there's a problem with basically the spark plug is where I'm seeing some of that problem here. So your spark plug is broken right here. That gives the initial pop into your engine to get things going. So you have a problem with your spark plug. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that. All right, so the spark plug is broken. But once you get things going, then the engine kind of takes care of itself and it's all on autopilot. I can see all of that happening. Okay, so, and the fruit is the sex, the money, and the control. Oh my God, that makes so much more sense. So when people are walking around going, money is energy. No, it's not. It's fruit. We're fruit seekers. Okay, and that's what the quick fix is, by the way. That's your get rich quick. That's your instant gratification. We want the fruit with literally the process with which energy acts. That's the work. All right, so this is starting to make more sense now. So you have a catalyst, which basically sets off, builds up. It builds up the emotional energy. And once you have X amount of frequency with emotional energy, it turns that emotional energy into a catalyst. That's your inertia. That then basically is your spark plug for getting you to take action. In order to do that, you require anger, the third stage of anger, which you can't get there until you've evolved to a certain education level. It is the eighth is when you the eighth age of growth is when you start communicating. So you have to get through communication, which happens at the end of the ninth stage. So 10th stage is when action takes place. So your subconscious mind needs to be 10 years old in order to make change happen in the third stage of anger. There it is. There it is. There it is. Okay, so now once that happens, then you convert that emotional energy, gets pumped into, driven, it gets motivated by the energy into inertia so that it actually becomes change. Once it becomes change, action occurs. That's when we take action in our lives and we basically claim authority. This is when authority occurs. And then when authority occurs, that's when we basically put in place a plan. That's when we have a plan of action. You've heard that. And then fruits of our labor occur. There you go. And that's when we get the sex, that's when we get the money, and that's when we get the control. That's it right there. That's it. That's physics. So we're energy beings. We are 100% energy beings. And this is us run off of our emotional energy. That is how the human operates, is literally off of our emotional energy. Now, when we have the emotional energy come in, we basically can direct it consciously. We can direct it to whatever we want, depending upon whatever outcome that we want. So control is the funny part. The power, this is beautiful. What is power and kinetic energy? So in psychology, you have authority, which is the practice of using your power to take control. So power is just it's like you have the king who has a sword. It's a magical sword, and he can use his magical sword to control a situation. So the king, the role of the king is the authority. His sword is his power. And the authority of the king using and wielding the sword of power, this is so nerdy and I love it, using his sword of power is what brings out controlling a situation effectively. Now, if someone comes along, as narcissists do, and they take the sword away from him, and now they try and wield it What they don't understand is it's like Mjolnir. You can't, it's like Thor's hammer. If you don't have it, you don't have it. The power and the authority is one and the same. Now, you can create a delusion, which is what Loki does. You can create a delusion of control and you can make people dance. That's called manipulation. And this is where you can manipulate or you can actually have authority. Or you can be puppeted. Those are your choices. You can manipulate, you can have the authority, or you can be a puppet. If you manipulate, you're actually trying to claim authority without actually claiming authority. So you're going to run around chasing something you can never have. The authority is the person who says, you can take my sword and use it, but you're not going to be able to use it effectively because at the end of the day, you are still manipulating people. Using fear to control people is not, in fact, control. You aren't in control at all. You are a terrorist. You are manipulating. You are not in control. If you were in control, the people would move exactly how you want them to move because you've given them the freedom for them to move and they've chosen you. You see, authority is about choice. You have to choose it. Whereas manipulation is about terrorism. And being puppeted is about not having any confidence. It's absolutely a lack of self-confidence. It's self-doubt. That's all. So the difference between the manipulator, the authority, and the puppet is literally the self-confidence, self-doubt. The manipulator desires self-confidence but doesn't know how to get it. And ultimately, they still self-doubt. So they try terrorism to motivate people. The authority is, the doubt is gone. They have full confidence and they inspire people. That's the difference. They don't terrorize, they inspire. Meanwhile, the puppet is all about self-doubt. They don't think they can. They're trapped in a mindset. A perfect target for the manipulator. So the manipulator will target the puppet. The puppet will have absolutely no ability to move or dictate. The thing is, the manipulator is not capable of taking down the authority figure. They can't. They can only target weak people who have an issue with self-doubt. I can't say that they're weak. They just struggle with self-doubt. The puppet has the ability to gain self-confidence and stand up and take authority. When they do that, they realize that they've had authority the entire time. So control is a fruit of our labor that only comes from obtaining authority. There is no other way to it. I have no idea how to get money or, well, I know how to get, no, I don't. I mean, I know how to get sex. I don't want it, though. That's basically how well you are with a partner. That's basically the reward of having, a partner, a you of I. Relationships, that's what that is. Relations. Money, I would say, is patron. Resources, that's what it is. It's how well you manage your resources. So if you want the fruit of control, you need to establish authority. That I've done, that I've got. With sex, you need to establish authority over relationships. And with money, you need to establish authority over your resources. That's it. You have to exercise authority over your resources and authority over your relationship. Wow. So there is the fruit of our labor. So sex, money, and control are not energy. They are fruit. And we are fruit seekers. There. That was the illogic that was bothering me. I'm like, that doesn't make any logical sense. Yeah, I feel much better now. I feel so much better. The logical fallacy has been confirmed. No, money is not energy. Absolutely not. No, it is not. No, it is not. Now, where does karma come into this? Because karma is basically the current. It's, that's the balancing system. Karma is the balancing system of energy. That's the neutron. It's the neutron that basically is in charge of making sure that there is a balance of negative and positive energy. That's karma. It's just a neutron. Let me confirm that that's the right word for this. I love combining physics and psychology. It's so much fun. A subatomic particle of about the same mass as a proton. We're back to mass again. But without an electric charge, present in all atomic nuclei except for those of ordinary hydrogen. The neutron is subatomic particle, symbols, which has a neutral charge. Yeah. So karma is basically the neutral charge. Yeah. We move around each other? What is this thing? I have no idea what I'm looking at. I think I'm looking at a full neutron. A neutron is a subatomic particle with about the same mass as a proton. No, that's a neutron, electron, proton. And they're all three rotating around this thing. Nucleus. The atomic nucleus contains protons and neutrons. So the nucleus, is the nucleus this beautiful, gorgeous thing in the middle? Oh, wait, I see now. It's rotating. The electron is rotating around the neutron and the proton. Now, why is it doing that? Why is it doing that? It's in motion. A neutron is a subatomic particle with about the same mass as a proton, but with a neutral electric charge. Interesting. So the proton and the neutron come together. The electron basically moves around it as if it's keeping it in balance. Neutron is no charge. Proton, positive charge. Electron, positive charge. Electron has a positive charge. Electron, neutron, proton. Oh, nucleus! Nucleus, that's what I'm looking at, is the nucleus. This thing is fascinating. What am I looking at? What is this thing? Is this a subatomic particle? Subatomic particle. I'm going to look this up. Subatomic particles. Subatomic particles. Subatomic particles. Subatomic particles. Helium atoms, subatomic particles. Electron, proton, and neutron. Fascinating. Electron, proton, and neutron. You know, there's three. There's always three. It's absolutely fascinating to me, and they move around it. God, this thing is extraordinary. I have no idea what this is, what subject this is. Atom and molecule. What's the difference between an atom and a molecule? Look at that. It's a common question, apparently. Atom, molecule, particles. Difference between atom, molecules, and particles. The sound that pops up, so it startled me. Okay. I did click on a video. I see that now. How your brain works. Electrical charged particles. This is what I'm saying. Yes. Neutral pulling electrical charges. I believe we're molecules. Bottom line, I believe that we are molecules. I believe that there are three of us, and then we have a neutron, an electron, and a proton. And when I sat down and talked to my friend Maury about this, who's a neuroscientist, he absolutely agreed. He's like, yes, I believe that we are also basically sentient molecules. And you have a negative charge or a positive charge. Now, we're also inside of our own selves the same thing. We're basically, this is where it gets into dimensions of we are inside of something greater than us, but a mirror of us. So imagine a God creates a child of itself, a creation of itself, but it's not here's the God and here's the child. It's inside of it, as if the DNA of the God itself comes to life. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And when I talk to my friends about it, they say the same thing, like, yeah, that's where all their science is basically pointing to. And with dimensions itself, it goes back, it goes forward, back, past, forward, future, but it also goes out and it also goes in and it also goes inside the mind. So you can see these dimensions literally moving all over the place. It's extraordinary. Particles. And when we look through a microscope and things get smaller and smaller, and then we look out in the telescope and things get bigger and bigger, we never stop to look at where we are in retrospect. Technically, we are exactly what it is. We are seeing out and big and small. We're all the same thing. It's like, when you're a kid and you're looking at these giant pictures and you're going, what am I looking at? And you realize you're looking at the magnified bristles of a toothbrush, but it doesn't look at all the same thing as a magnified bristle of a toothbrush because you're looking so close at it. Well, we are what a molecule looks like at a particular magnification. If you were to look at a molecule with the naked eye, this is what we look like. Is exactly what we are today. Oh, this is lovely. Particles. Atom is the smallest particle of an element. When two or more atoms join together chemically, they form a molecule. And ions are any particle that carries a charge. See, now I believe we carry a charge. That is our emotional mental environment, psychologically speaking, because now basically your emotional energy, if you have a surplus of positive energy, positive thoughts, that's going to convert into positive energy. So you can literally control. This is what we're talking about. We are talking about your ability to control your own positive and negative charge based off of what types of thought, what mindset you have. So if you want a positive mindset, if you want to be a proton, then you need to have a surplus of positive thoughts. In order to do that, you have to know exactly the emotional energy relationship between words and energy, which I do, which is what I'm doing right now. So once you select exactly what words you want to add to your vocabulary, it will supercharge, positively charge your emotional mental environment inside your subconscious mind, and you can literally have a positive emotional mental environment. Now, to do that, you have to basically reverse the polarity of your subconscious mind by having a surplus. This is why I'm looking at physics, a surplus of positive thoughts. In order to get a surplus of positive energy, then you need to basically bring about change via a catalyst. And the catalyst, the inertia, is going to depend upon the frequency in which the discomfort happens. Once you have a set amount of frequency, then it will get you to that certain stage of anger, third stage of anger, which is where change happens. And then that will be the spark plug you need to initiate inertia, the situation you need for you to take action. Once you take action, you will be able to execute your plan of action. Your plan of action is your who, what, where, when. All of this together is the how. This is the how, by the way. That's what I'm doing here. I am defining how to change your mental environment. That's what this is. So it's your what, your where, your when, and your why. Once you get those things in place, then you receive the fruit of your labor, whether it be sex, money, or control. Control really is kind of like you're going to have it. Do you want control over money? Do you want control over sex? Is there anything else in the world? Really, is there anything else in the world? I mean, you could just have control, maybe control of choice. That would be really nice, control of choice. So when you get control of choice, then you can choose, because controlling literally means choice. And you can choose sex, money, or is there really anything else in life? So yeah. But you could also argue that money is just a tool, a catalyst to get X. And now we're looking at possessions, comforts. But yeah, interesting. And the idea is to have this on an autopilot. Now, the problem is, how do you go from where you are now, where it's an autopilot of a negative environment, autopilot with depression and mental illness? Well, the education. It always comes back to education, because education leads you to awareness, leads you to the conscious effort to flip a switch, which is what I'm doing here. I'm flipping switches. So that's what I'm doing. All right, it's been an hour. So I'm going to wrap this up. Like, subscribe, follow, comment below. Let me know what part of the show resonated with you. And if you want to know more about what I do, click on the Linktree account below. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.